Hello, I have some art products here to show you, and I'll tell you what inspired them as I go along. The first thing, which is something I'm always showing you, is a Canson XL watercolour pad, because I get through them so quickly. So recently I did a video showing the difference between different gel sticks, tempera paint sticks and gelatos. Someone mentioned that they also like using distress crayons from Ranger by Tim Holtz. These aren't a new product. I think these have been on the market since about 2016. And whilst I do have some of Tim Holtz's distress products, like some of his inks, I hadn't really paid much attention to the distress crayons. So I've got a few different packs here. It took a bit of research to get to the bottom of this product. It turns out that there are 12 sets of these 6 packs, plus there's a set of 3 metallics, and then there are also 12 pearl colours. So in total there's 87 colours. But I picked out these specific ones because I wanted to see if I could find some good dupes for a specific Faber-Castell gelato set, which is the translucent set. A lot of people really love the colours in it, but it's quite a hard set to get hold of. So today I'm going to see if I can find good substitutes. In my previous video, I'd gone through several of these different mediums. So the King Art gel sticks, Faber-Castell gelatos, Shuttle Art tempera sticks, Caran d'Ache Neocolours, and Stabilo woodies. So what I'll do is, once I've opened them, I'll do a similar test and see how they compare. I think from my research, I'll find that the distress crayons are a hybrid of some of these others. So I think they've got the creaminess and blendability of, say, like the King Art and the gelatos, but also I believe that they dry like the Shuttle Art tempera sticks do. So these might turn out to be a really, really good mixed media addition. I'll do another video on these later where I swatch out all of the colours, but for now I'm really curious and I want to do a quick comparison. I didn't get a set with primary colours because those aren't colours I tend to use. I like more muted colours. So this is the closest to a red and a yellow that I've got. First of all, well, I'll put some over here to start drying out. Actually, if I just show you this. So I don't think the barrel is full. That's as much colour as you've got. Though it is quite nice having a kind of a full pen to hold on to. So I think the first test I did was just smudging. So these are quite nice and smudgeable. I shall put a bit more on there and then see how they blend. Yeah, so those blend very nicely and they feel quite comparable to the King Art gel sticks and the Faber-Castell gelatos in how they blend. And you seem to have a reasonable amount of time to blend them, as opposed to the Shuttle Art sticks, which dry super, super fast. Then look at opacity. So like the other mediums, they're not fully opaque. But they're semi-opaque. And then these are also water soluble, so we'll see how they blend out. So they release quite a nice amount of pigment. I'll just add some more on the edge of there for going over the top of in pencil in a minute. So for the price of these, I got some of the sets for $10.99 on eBay, but on Amazon in other shops they were up to £14.99 a set, but it varied from set to set. So they vary from £1.83 to £2.49 at the time that I was trying to buy them anyway. So if you can get them for the cheaper price, that works out about the same price as the Stabilo Woodies. And the Faber-Castell Gelatos, the pastel set that I had, was £33. So they were the most expensive. So these are definitely up there as far as expense goes. So now this one's been sitting here drying a bit, I'll see how it smudges out. So it's not dry. Hello, I'm actually carrying on this video a few days after recording what I've done so far. I got a Coast Guard call out and life's been a bit hectic ever since. So I think I'd got up to showing you the Ranger Tim Holtz Distress crayons, and I'd smudged the crayon after it had sat there for quite a few minutes. So now that I'm here several days later, it smudges the tiniest bit, and again that might be because I've got slightly damp fingers, but it's definitely dried to quite a large extent. So let me do that again and make sure my finger's completely bone dry. Okay, so yeah, a tiny little bit smudges when I rub it really, really hard, but there's not too much transfer. And then the final thing that I'd done in my previous tests with the other crayons was try wetting it after it's been dried out for a period of time. And a little bit of the pigment's coming away, but not loads. This is the Stabilo Woody and the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s, and a lot more comes off after a substantial drying time. So I think what I'll do, but in another video, is try and find dupes for all of the Faber-Castell Translucence Gelato set. Another thing I got was the tin to store the crayons in. So this holds up to 34 and I've got 30 in the packs. I really like these Tim Holtz tins. I know they're quite expensive for what they are, but I've got quite a few now and just enjoy using them. So some Distress Ink little blocks. And I've got some Distress Oxides, which I've stuck the labels on. And then my alcohol inks, which are beautifully scruffy now. There we are, that's lovely. But I do think I'm going to enjoy using these as well as the other mixed media sticks on top of paintings. Then in here, these are two Rosa Galleria watercolour tubes, and I do have the whole pan version of both of these paints. I really, really like them. I wanted to be able to squeeze them into half pans and other travel kits. So I was really, really excited when I found these granulating watercolours from Rosa Galleria for sale online. I can't remember the name of the shop at the moment. I think it might be Crafty Arts, but I'll link to it down below because Jackson's don't yet sell these. I've not had any tubes from Rosa Galleria before. I've just got them in pan form. So that's the Cobalt Grey, and that's a mixture of PR108, PB28 and PBK7. And then this other one is Golden Brown. I just think these are fantastic landscapey colours. Well, I guess, and urban colours. And the Golden Brown is PY43 and PBR7. I'd used the grey for the cliffs in this painting that I did recently. And in these lower cliffs here. I mean, look how beautifully they're granulating already, and they're such a good price. And then the other thing I got was some Brusho by Colourcraft, and I believe it's a kind of watercolour powder. So I've picked out olive green. I've seen it around for quite a long time, and I think actually I might have added it to an order so that I'd get free shipping. So I thought I'd give it a go. I think people like pierce holes in the lid and kind of sprinkle it out the lid. It's a very interesting colour for olive green, and I haven't actually I've seen it around, but I've not actually seen it in use very much. So I'm just going to wet a patch and then sprinkle some and see what happens. Wow, well that is not what I was expecting. I'm sure when I mix those it will make an olive green. Yeah, there we go. I think I'm a little bit disappointed that it doesn't sprinkle out olive green, because I guess I thought I might be able to use it kind of to sprinkle over watercolour and just add a bit of texture, like in greenery and foliage. But it definitely needs a bit of additional water after the sprinkling. Let's try sprinkling it into a really, really soggy bit. Well, it's quite interesting to watch. I'm not sure about this, what I think of it. If you use this stuff, and I've got some good ideas that work well for you with it, then please do let me know. It's very interesting. Then I also got some Uni-ball Air Signo pens. I'm still collating art materials for my son to take out to my sister in New Zealand. So I bought a pack of 6 and we'll split it. We can have 3 each. But I really like these pens for sketching with. I finished using up the 3 that I had bought originally, and I think I prefer using these to fine liners actually. They just seem quite versatile. Yeah, lovely and smooth. My other ones got quite a scratchy tip towards the end of their use, but they do last for ages, and the ink is waterproof once it's dried. So I like using this in splodge and scribble paintings over the top of my watercolours, but then I can still add extra touches of watercolour once this is dried. And then when there was the recent Amazon Prime Day, or days, I ended up buying one thing from there, And this is Paul Rubens Higher Oil Pastels. And I got a whole white set. I probably wouldn't have bought them this early unless I'd seen them on offer, but I know they will get used. I'll just show you one of them. Just really opaque and consistent, and a lovely level of softness that I enjoy. My current white's getting a little bit stumpy. It's the colour I use the most. I picked up this little baby palette. It's actually quite a nice design. It's got the white lid for a mixing palette, and then an insert. And I got this so that I can put some watercolours in to send to my sister. I'll use a bigger one for main colours, but I thought for some of the watercolour tubes where either I haven't got much paint left or I just want to send her one to try out a little bit, I thought this might be a nice addition to the big palette that I'll put together for her. Then I was also curious about the brand Potentate that produce watercolour papers. So I'd seen these tins around the place. I've got 3 here, and I absolutely fell in love with the colour of them. And they contain watercolour postcards. So I think they come in 3 different paper finishes. So I don't know if that's rough or cold press. No, that looks marginally rougher than that one. Yeah, and that's hot press there. So I've got those to try out, and then I picked up a couple of little pads. This is 100% cotton paper, 300 GSM, and I picked up the cold press. So I'll have a paint on that in a minute. And then this is a little kind of accordion album. It's not a huge one, but I thought that would be fun to give a go as well. It's quite a rough cold press paper. That's why I've got some of that watercolour powder on it. And it's got a slightly more regular pattern than I tend to like, but it's not too bad. I'll show you some watercolours next, and then I'll try them out on here. So this lovely box arrived in the post yesterday, and this is a gift from Paul Rubens, and this is their box of 48 5th generation artist level watercolours, and this is their highest quality level of watercolours. So you've got the usual lovely sturdy cardboard box and microfiber cloth, and then there's a pink and a black version of this palette. I'll do a full review including a proper painting with this set in a separate video. I'll just take a quick look at it now. Really lovely, good quality feeling, kind of standard metal palette. And then a brochure with the colour range in. We've got pigment information, light fast rating, transparency, and then one of their sparkly watercolour paper swatch sheets, and you've got the names and the pigment information on that. So just taking a quick look at what there is in here. So there's a silver, no pigment information, and a gold. It looks like there's a large proportion are single pigment paints. So they come with the paper wrappers on, again with all the information. And it doesn't look like they're poured in. So this is, what have I got? Transparent orange PO71. Ooh, that's a very flowy one. Let's have a look at the Quin Rose. That one's a bit less flowy. And then this is Indigo. I guess this is turning into a sunset, but I haven't actually got a sun. Let's see if I can lift a little sun out. Let's do a few clouds. Sorry, yeah, anyway, just having a bit of a play. I'll get a better impression of the paints when I do a bigger painting, but they seem perfectly nice to work with there. They re-wet nicely and they don't seem too claggy or anything. I'm not sure about the watercolour paper. I don't know if it's showing up, but the kind of regularity of the print is showing up a bit more. I definitely don't like it as much as Bao Hong watercolour paper. I'm assuming this is another Chinese brand. Yep, so that's those ones. And then also something watercolour related, which I am exceptionally excited about, and shouldn't be, because I've already got far too many travel palettes already. This is a Bowerbird palette. So it comes with 2 glass peanuts. I'm not sure what these are, unless they're kind of like a paintbrush rest, or maybe they just like send in glass peanuts for fun. I do not know. But yes, the palette. Isn't that pretty? I don't know where I first saw these. I can't remember where I came across them. I might have just seen it on Amazon, which is where I got it from. And even though it's pretty, I wouldn't have bought another palette just for the tin. But the selling point for me was this lovely ceramic palette inside. I think possibly you can work it out of there. Maybe if you've got a knife either side, just to temporarily bend back the sides a little bit. Not that I want to take it out anyway. So there's 18 little spacers. And let's see if my travel brush will fit in. This is my Silver Black Velvet number 6 travel brush. Close. Yeah, that's very nice. So it's a fairly standard tin with a little swatch card inside. But yeah, I couldn't resist this ceramic. I think it's so lovely. I'm just getting my regular palette out to compare it to size-wise. Yeah, so they're pretty much the same. That's just got the 2 wells in the lid, and that's got the 3. It might be like a millimetre or 2 taller. So at some point I will have enormous fun choosing what colours go in there, and I will do a video on all of my travel watercolour palettes and show you some of the differences and favourite features or worst features of them. I'll show you a couple of books next. So I already had this book, How to Be a Wildflower by Katie Daisy, and you might have seen me copying some illustrations from it from time to time. It's a lovely book just to dip into. So I think I copied a couple of these birds, and I think I did a bee out of here recently. Yeah, I did that bee. So it's just a nice inspiration book if you kind of want to turn your brain off a bit and just play with colour and copy something. So I saw that Katie Daisy had also done another book, How to Be a Moonflower. So I'm assuming it's pretty similar, but with a darker colour palette. And I like the idea of this as inspiration for gouache paintings, because it's going to be a lot of light on dark. That background's lovely. That's nice, all the moon names. I didn't know the different names of the full moons until I moved to Cornwall, and we celebrate them by going for an evening swim with the Blue Tits, the local swimming group. That's such a pretty book. Loads of inspiration in there. And not overly repetitive from the Wildflower book, I don't think. Though obviously fairly similar. I managed to get this one secondhand. And then another book that I've got, which I picked up a few weeks ago actually. I'd been to Penzance, to the Cornwall Contemporary Art Gallery, and there was a David Mankin exhibition on in there, and I really enjoy his work, find it really interesting, and follow him on Instagram. So I was in the gallery, and it's a signed copy, and he was actually in the gallery. And amazingly enough, because I don't normally recognise anybody, even when I know them, I recognised him and we had a nice chat. So it's really nice because I've seen a lot of these in real life now. fact, I've got some video of it, so I'll have to make that into a video. But there's one part of the gallery where there are all of these small pieces displayed next to each other, and it looks incredible. It's so effective. I'm really glad I've got that record of the paintings that I've seen in real life. And then another book which I bought just this week. I've been in St Ives for the week doing a painting course at the St Ives School of Painting, and on one of the lunch breaks had popped out and Paul Wadsworth had an exhibition there, and I hadn't come across him before, but he has these huge, beautiful, bright paintings just everywhere. And again, I've got some video, so I'm going to have to get all these made into video form. So I just picked up one of his books from him for, I think this was £5. So he's got a lot of Indian inspired paintings. And they're not in this book, but he's also got some Cornwall inspired paintings, which are a completely different colour palette, but lovely and wild looking. So I'll link to Paul down below to his Instagram if you're interested in seeing that, more of that work. And then this pad I ordered months ago, and it's just taken forever to get here. And it's Canson Mi-Teintes, I always forget how this is pronounced, Mi-Teintes velvet, and this is a pastel paper. I've seen a few places that this has been called people's new favourite pastel paper and kind of up there with pastel matte paper, and my curiosity won out and I wanted to try some. It says no fixative needed and wet mixed media, so it's looking like pastels, charcoal, pencil and watercolour paper. And it says that it's able to take multiple colour layers. It's pretty thick, 430 GSM. Let's take a look at it. So I'm just getting out my pastel matte pad for comparison. So they feel fairly similar actually. The Canson feels ever so slightly rougher. And although it's called velvet, it feels more like a really, really fine sandpaper than actual velvet. So I've got some Schminke soft pastels. I'll just give it a go on. Wow, I mean these Schminke ones are super, super soft. And that's pretty good, that is not budging. Let me just find a tiny, corner on my test sheet. So there's more dust produced on the Clairefontaine. Maybe not. Oops. I mean, I'm not a pastel artist. I don't have, well, I've basically done one picture with it, but from that test at least, they seem very comparable. But if you're interested in the Canson paper, then I'd definitely have a look at some online reviews for it, made by people who know what they're talking about and are more familiar with pastels. But from a personal point of view, I'm going to enjoy using that. And then, this makes me so happy, not very necessary, but I saw them for a reasonable price. They're gel plates in different shapes. And I like the idea of doing some printing, like with these shapes. Oh, they're so satisfying. I mentioned that I've just been on an art course in St Ives and we were working with acrylics, and I've got some cheapy Amsterdam acrylics which are great for gel plate printing but not as opaque as I'd like for big paintings. So on my way back from the course I picked up a few colours to flesh out the acrylics that I've already got. So I've got the ivory black, permanent magenta. I wouldn't normally buy black, but I learnt a new technique which I'll talk about in another video for doing acrylic painting, and it involves using black, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So that's what that's for. Naples yellow, green gold and titanium white. I did actually have some white already, but that's pretty much run out now. So there's my revolting looking test sheet. Now has that got a seal inside it? No. Winsor & Newton do have a professional acrylic paint range, but these Galleria ones I find are quite nice and pigmented, and are certainly sufficient for the kind of thing I'll be using it for. So what am I doing here? Let's just make a nice textured circle. Let that dry for a minute. There we go. I fancy doing a sheet of giant polka dots with all nice textures and colours. Wow, every time I do a swatching video of some description, I keep thinking my swatch pages cannot get any worse looking, but I've done it again. And then the very last product are some Sizzix die cutters. I don't buy die cutters very often at all now. I spent quite a few years making cards for a few die cutting companies, and I absolutely love the whole concept of die cutting, but I don't do that much with them now. But when I saw this set, I was just really attracted to it. I kind of imagine doing all lovely, interesting watercolour and ink backgrounds to cut these leaves out of, and then making cards and things. So I'll show you them. When I first started die cutting, this is what the dies look like, and it was mainly Sizzix that were making them. And I've kept some of my old favourites. And then they made the design a little bit sleeker. But now a lot of the dies produced are these thin metal ones. I've hung on to my older ones though, because these thick ones have got much thicker blades hidden in the foam, and you can cut out all sorts of things with these, like fabric and tin can and mount board. But these are fine for cardboard and paper. So here's my ancient yucky looking Sizzix machine, and I'll use some of my swatch page. There we go. So you just put them face down onto the pattern that you want cutting. Just do it back again. And the handle rollers it through two presses inside here. and squashes the metal edge onto the cardboard. Wow, those look pretty cool actually. That's gorgeous. Not a particularly leafy colour, but you get the idea. The granulating watercolours work so well with it. You can imagine Daniel Smith undersea green. But yeah, this Brusho powder is nice as well. It's almost left the paper with a little bit of sheen actually. So I was just thinking a cluster of those on a card front, and just to make a simple card. Another nice thing that I do with these leaves is ink the edges of them. So I've got an old distress ink and block. Not even used this in ages. Yeah, still got a bit in it. And when you put a bit of ink around the edges, it creates a nice kind of shadow, gives it a little bit more dimension. And if you've got a lighter coloured die cut against a white card, it kind of shows the edges up a little bit better as well. So quite a few things that I'm excited about there and think I'll enjoy using. Thanks ever so much for watching. And as always, if you've got any ideas for how you use these products or your thoughts on these products, either positive or negative, then please let me know in the comments. Bye!